Well folks, I'm just casually driving today and look what we've come across here. Someone's dumped, looks like a Victa lawnmower on the side of the road. So I've just pulled over. Let's jump out the car. Let's have a closer look at what's been dumped here. Absolutely folks, she's a Victa. Just look at that, and look, it's just been dumped out here right alongside a nature reserve. What a shame. Anyway, let's have a closer look at this thing. Here's a Mustang 20. It looks like someone's been having a bit of a play with it, and in all honesty, it does look pretty rough. I mean, look, someone's welded that up there, but look, she's an alloy bodied unit and Victa Mustang 20. So what do you reckon, folks? You know me, it's gonna go in the boot and we're taking it home right now, aren't we? Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. I'm here with this Victa 2-stroke Mustang 20 lawnmower, which I picked up abandoned on the side of the road just the other day. But to be honest, the more I look at this thing, it is rough. I mean, there's a hole in the alloy deck. You can see at some stage it was welded up here on the linkage from the front to the rear wheels. It's got a second spark plug where there should be a decompressor. I mean, someone's been in here, you know, it doesn't, the pull start hardly even retracts. It does turn over a fraction. Look, I'm just looking at this thinking, I don't know why I even dragged it home. But for a laugh, I'm thinking, should we see if we could even get this, the worst possible Victa 2-stroke that I've ever picked up, can we make it run? And then, is there something useful that we can do with this engine? So let's get into it. Let's have a look at this thing. I mean, just look at this. I mean, look at the rust on the cylinder head. As you can see, it's got the second spark plug where there should be a decompressor, blocking that off because it's obviously failed at some stage. I mean, the whole thing is just looking really, really, really rough. But anyway, I don't even know where to start. Anyway, so let's get the fuel tank off. It's already undone. Let's get that off out of the way completely. Let's get the handlebars up. And do you know what? Let's get the pressure cleaner onto this and just clear the muck off of it anyway. Let's get some truck wash onto this. Get it, you know, soaking in there. Let's get that engine at least cleaned up a little bit. So let's get this dodgy starter off straight away. A little bit of corrosion in there, I reckon. So anyway, let's see how that goes. Look, it's actually really clean inside the cylinder area there. So let's get this other starter on that's over here. Slightly different style, but it should still work. So let's pop that on there. Just check it's got an O-ring there. Yep, that's all good. And pop that down. And just feel it by hand. Certainly feels good. Now, let's give it a pull and see how she feels. Well, with that second spark plug in, it's certainly got a lot of compression. So it feels like it's got good compression, but let's now check for spark. Let's get the boot off. Even the boot doesn't really want, and that spark plug looks really, really tired. But let's get that off anyway. It's a really gummy old plug that's been thrown in there. Let's ground it out onto the block with my lead here, and let's pull it over and see if we can see any resemblance of spark. Now, I don't see anything at all. However, I mean, this lawnmower is such a cactus lawnmower. So as you saw, there's no resemblance of spark there at all. But, I mean, the throttle thing's completely broken as well. So we don't even know if this is in the run position or in the stop position. So let's disconnect the kill wire down on the carburetor. Then we'll pull it again to see if we've got spark. So let's move that spark plug out the way. Twist this carburetor off. And let's just pull that kill wire out. Now the fact that we can't move that kill wire suggests it probably is in the off position. Let's get some pliers. See if we can get in there and just yank that out. There we go. So let's look for spark now. Nothing. So let's swap the spark plug for a known good spark plug. Connect our lead back up and give it another pull. So we've still got no spark on the old girl. So folks, if we've got to see this motor run, it's desperate times, but let's throw another coil on the bottom of this Victa. So let's flip it upside down. And let's get this cutting disc off. So since we've got the motor off, let's give it a clean underneath. So whilst I was cleaning the engine, I noticed there's a few holes in this muffler as well. It's just completely rotten. So since we've gone this far, let's get that off as well. Hopefully we can even get it off and it's not just completely stuffed. I mean, that just popped off pretty easily. And since we're in here, let's just clean off a bit of that excess rust that's around that port there. Bit of carbon on the inside as well. Let's just get that out. And we'll just turn it over and actually just have a look at what sort of condition the piston's actually in. Let's just pop that plug out so we can turn it over easily. And with that down, let's just clean some of that carbon on the inside. And let's just have a look at the condition of this piston together. You can see it actually surprisingly looks pretty good. So I think we might be on a little bit of a winner here, to be honest. So let's pop on a nice shiny silver muffler. But that's not going to be so easy because it looks like we've left the old sleeve from the old muffler in there. So we're going to have to try to get that off somehow. Let's just see. We can give that a bit of a love tap. So folks, after a heck of a lot of hammering with the chisel, I still can't get this exhaust manifold port, what's left of the muffler, out of the engine block. I've soaked it with WD-40 overnight. So what I'm going to attempt to do now is just to cut it out with the Dremel. Now I've deliberately chosen a metal disc that's been worn down a little bit so I can try to get it in that port. But this is kind of the last resort. I'm not giving up on this just yet. I'm trying to get this old engine block to run, but I've got to get what remains of that exhaust muffler out of the block, otherwise we might as well just scrap it. So let's try and cut it out with the Dremel. So folks, I think I've managed to achieve what I wanted to here. I'll bring you in close, but you'll see that I've managed to cut through the remains of that muffler, and then I've been able to tap it, so it's just breaking through, so hopefully we'll be able to just curl what remains all off the engine block. And by using that disc, which had been worn down, that metal disc with that smaller diameter, I was able to get that Dremel tool in there, and we're just going to try to get the remains of that muffler out. Look, it's going to be an absolute miracle if we can get this block to run. I do admit it, but let's just keep going. We said we'd see if we can get it to run. So let's keep going. Look at that, folks. We've got it out. So there you go, we've got the remains of the muffler out of the block, and just looking, I don't think I even really scored the block where I was using that Dremel. I was really careful. Importantly, what I didn't say, you may have seen in the video, but I actually turned over the engine so the piston was fully out, so we weren't getting debris actually inside the cylinder area. What I'm going to do now, I'll just do it off camera, but I will go tip it upside down, squirt some WD-40 and get it really clean in there. Get all those metal filings out before we do anything else and before we risk moving the piston away from that closed position that it's currently in. So now that we've got that cleaned up on the inside of that exhaust port, let's get our shiny new muffler onto this old engine block, and then we'll start looking at that coil. So we flip the engine over and let's get this old ignition coil off. As you can see, she's pretty tight. And you can just see it's just really old and rusted, so it's probably why she's not working there. Pull those ignition wires off. And let's just cut the old corroded wires off to the old condenser, because I'm going to replace it with a more modern style of coil that doesn't actually require that little condenser on the side there. Let's just get this off and just junk out of the way. Just cut that off completely. So folks, I've got this known good ignition coil that I'm going to use on this engine. It doesn't have the external little silver condenser. You can see it's actually got that little bump here. It's built in. So they're a lot more reliable in my opinion. I have less issues with these. So we're going to install this one. As you saw, I just cleaned up those contact points for the magnetic field. That's really so I can get it just as close as possible, so that we can get a really good spark. So to install the new ignition coil, let's first of all poke the ignition wires through the hole. Let's get those through just quickly, just like that. Now as you can see, I've got this piece of paper here. Now the reason I've got that is we want to get the ignition coil as close as possible to the flywheel. And this is the way that I do it. Put that down there like that, and then we'll get those bolts in. And then we should be able to just rotate that flywheel out of the way. A little bit of a scrape, but you know, that's just getting the rest of the surface rust off. I think that's going to be perfect. So looking at this Mustang 20 base, it's actually got that big hole in it, and I'm no aluminium welder, so I'm not going to attempt to repair this base. And on the chance that we can actually get that motor to run, I've actually put so much effort into it now. Let's see what else we can find around the yard. Let's see if we can find a suitable donor base for that motor. So having a poke around, I've actually got this really good condition. It's a metal base, but it's a Victa metal base that's in fantastic condition. This was actually a base that I had a subscriber reach out to me. I went around and picked it up with a bunch of other parts. I'm going to use that motor in this base. Let's see if we can turn this into a running, winning combination. So just put this sheet down to protect our base. It's not clean, the base, however, it is metal, and I want to protect that paint as much as possible. Now, if you've seen my videos, you know that I like to do it where I have the motor in position and then I flip the base on top of the motor. But we also need to put a plate on. I don't think this motor even had one of these plates on it, but we need to put one of these plates in place. So just slide that in like that, and then we'll flip that base over the top. So obviously the Mustang 20 is actually a wider body, and I'm not actually going to be able to put that cutting disc on with those longer blades. So let's grab a 18-inch cutting disc, which is going to fit in there nicely. Let's get that on right now, and making good progress here, I'd say. So folks, it turns out it's not as simple as just swapping a standard 18 cutting disc onto this engine, because look at this, it's got a bit of play. And when I come back to the original Mustang 20 cutting disc, I did see this before and didn't really think anything about it, but you can see it's got that additional thickness of metal that's on the cutting disc. Obviously everything about the Mustang 20, the engine, the drive shaft, the cutting disc, everything's just that little bit stronger. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to use this cutting disc to match that motor and just put shorter blades. So let's get that one off, let's swap the blades over, get the original cutting disc which suits that motor back on. Wow, that thing fought me all the way, but finally we've got the Victa Mustang 20 cutting disc. We've got the longer blades off. Now we can get the shorter blades on, and then we'll be able to get this onto the shaft. You can see straight away it's the right height and it's not going to have that slop. So let's get some shorter blades on, let's get moving. Finally, we've got our Mustang 20 engine with the cutting disc installed into a classic 18 metal base. I must be mad the amount of effort I've put in just to see if this motor will run. So let's turn him back over. Look at that, folks. Okay, so now that we've done all of this work on this Mustang 20 engine, let's see if it's got spark now. I've got my grounding wire hooked up. You could alternatively just hold the spark plug to the head, but just doing this on my own, I like this grounding wire that I've got hooked up. Let's pull the cord, let's see if we've got spark. Oh yeah, folks, we have got heaps of spark. So now that we've confirmed spark, let's get the spark plug back in the head. And let's get that spark plug out of the decompressor hole and find a good decompressor to put in there. So it's got spark, we put a decompressor back in. Let's put a carb on, a fuel tank on, put some fuel in, and see if we can make this run. So we've got that carb on. Let's just chuck this fuel tank on. I know I've got the old Mustang 20 fuel tank, but that's dirty and I haven't cleaned it, and I'm really not sure what type of fuel tank we should put on this mower anyway long term, because clearly it's a Mustang 20 but it's not a Mustang 20 body. But drop a comment down below, tell me what you think. But let's get this tank on for now. So just pull that through just like that. We get those screws in. And come around and get that fuel line on. Then let's get some two-stroke, get that in the fuel tank and give it a pull. Let's just check it's got fuel flowing through. Yep, plenty of fuel flowing through. Let's give it 3 primes. Come across to the throttle, we'll go down, back up, and somewhere in the middle. Let's give it a pull. Is she gonna run? Well, she spluttered, folks. Give her another go. Let's give it a couple more primes. Let's have a look what's going on in this carburetor that I've thrown on here. So let's just turn that fuel tap off. Let's get this carburetor off. Alright. So, why don't we pop on a new primer bulb, a new special jet. We'll give it a thorough clean and let's take it from there. Let's just spray in here the throttle body carburetor cleaner. Let's clean the main jet there. Alright, so we've got a new primer cap. Let's pop that new O-ring on there. We'll just get a little bit of silicone spray, which will make that O-ring just slide on nicely. Let's pop our new needle in. Make sure we get in the right way round. We'll reuse the old float. So just swing that on like that. And our clean main jet screw, which we've just put on there. Let's pop that all back together and see if we have any better luck. Okay, turn that fuel on. Got good fuel flow through. Alright, so with that bit of a carburetor service, let's turn the fuel tap on, give it, say, 3 primes. Come around, we'll go, I don't know, down, up, back, down again, and let's give it a pull. There you go, folks. Well, she cut out there, but she ran, folks, she ran. The Mustang 20 ran. Let's give that a pull again and see if we can get it going. Let's give that a couple of primes. Well, folks, it's quite clear it's actually out of fuel because I've just pulled that off. There's no fuel coming out there. Now let's put some more fuel in that tank and see if we can get her to go again. There we go. Now we've got some fuel coming through. That's a good sign. Give that 3 primes. Down, up, down. Let's give that a pull again. Well, there you go, folks. She's got a bit of smoke coming off the engine there. But clearly, we have managed to salvage the Mustang 20 engine. I can't believe it. I mean, that thing was in such a state of disrepair. Now, she's not running very well. You can hear there, and I think maybe we've got a couple of issues going on. I suspect that this fuel cap is actually not letting air in. It's creating a little bit of a suction vacuum back in the tank, which may be stopping that fuel flow through. I also think we've got some air leaks happening in the old O-rings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the starter off and put a new O-ring on the starter and a new O-ring set on the inlet manifold. And let's see if we can actually get this engine running a little bit better. Okay, so let's get this fuel tank off. Just disconnect that fuel line there and get these couple of screws out here. Get that over to one side. Now, let's get this carburetor off straight away as well. Just pop that off like that and yank those ignition wires out. You probably noticed that it wasn't switching off, so I mustn't have had those quite incorrectly anyway. Next, let's get this little inlet manifold off here. Now, I've just got this little stubby screwdriver. They can be quite tight, but as you can see, I'm able to get that coming out now. So let's just get that undone. Pop that screw over there and we'll get this top one out as well. Just get in there. Top one's a little bit tighter, but we are getting that. So get that out just like that. And then we can see we can just pop this manifold off. Now straight away I can see that there actually is just no gasket at all, unless it's just fallen out. But I'll bring you in close. There is no O-ring actually on that inlet manifold at all for some reason. And just checking, no, it hasn't fallen in to the engine at all. So my inclination with the way that was running was there was a leak. Well, there's nothing there at all. But since we've got this off, we will pop on both a new one there and a new one here as well. So let's get this one off here. Just want to eliminate as many possible air leaks as we can, just to give this motor half a chance of running properly. So grab a couple of new O-rings. Going to pop that one on the outside there, just like that. In actual fact, this manifold, just looking at that, the manifold's actually broken. So I might go and see if I can grab another one out of my spares. Alright, so found another manifold. Let's get its old O-rings off so we don't have the same problem. Get that big one off there and just get that one off which we put on here. This was the brand new one. Just be really careful not to actually damage it getting it off. Just pull that off like that and pop that on straight away, just like that. And then let's get that little one off and pop the new little one on, just like that. And I'll just go get some silicone spray to slide that on. So just using that silicone spray and put some over here as well. And then let's get that manifold in, just wiggle it in. Where's that going to go? In like that. I reckon that's about how that's going to pop in there. Really nice fit. And let's get our screws and get those in. So let's get a carburetor back on to this mower. I'm actually going to swap over to this one, which is slightly longer on the tube compared to the old one, and we'll make sure we get the ignition wires set up as well. So we'll get that set to the halfway position. You probably noticed that it didn't switch off last time, so let's try and get this set up properly this time. Get that main ignition wire in first, just like that, all the way in. Then we get that boot on. Some people struggle with this, but once you get the hang of it, kind of I like to, once I get that piece in, go to the all the way run position, because that just moves it out of the way and kind of locks it in position. Then we get the boot into position, and then just after the boot's in position, push that cutout wire through. Okay, so with those ignition wires now back in, let's get this carburetor on. Slide that on. This one's a real tight fit, and get that decompressor around and on, and the vacuum there for the speed limiter. Now, given the slight vacuum issue that I think we're having with that last black top, I'm thinking we just try a different top, because this has got different cap. Let's get that threaded through, and let's get this fuel tank on. Grab my screwdriver and pop that fuel line on. Now let's get some fuel in that, and then let's see if it'll start and run. So turn the fuel tap on. I'll just check if it's got fuel flow. Yep, got fuel coming through. Let's give that 3 primes. We'll go, like I always do, down, up and back, up and to the middle. Let's give it a pull. So there we go, folks. We've replaced those couple of O-rings down on that manifold. I actually found the manifold had a crack on it, and in fact didn't even have a little O-ring where the manifold connects to the inlet port of the block. So that has really sorted out how that engine runs. Runs really nice. It's actually switching off from the throttle. So there you go. We've actually got this Mustang 20 engine, which was an absolute disaster of an engine running. I'm thinking now, these handlebars on this frame are actually really rusted. I'm gonna go see if I can find a set of nicer handlebars, just get this looking really nice. So there you go, folks. How good's that looking with those black bars? I couldn't help but giving it a bit of a wash off camera as well. I think this has just come up an absolute beauty. I found a period correct catcher to go with this base, but the best part about it is we've rejuvenated this Mustang 20, which was an absolute disaster of a mower, as you've seen, and we've got it running. And we've transplanted it, because the other base had holes in it, we've transplanted it into this base, which I didn't have an engine for, but it's actually a really nice red steel base. But what do you think of this? Leave a comment down below. But also, I'm just wondering, I've got the original Mustang 20 white top. Do you think this model would look better with this top or with that black top? I personally like the black, but tell me what you think. I'll play around. I'll do it off camera. I'll put a couple of photos into the video of it with the white top. You know, Mustang 20, origins to the engine. As you saw, it's actually got the cutting disc, but with the smaller blades. It's only an 18-inch cutting width. But who knows? You tell me down below what you think you'd rather prefer. White top, black top, and tell us what you actually think about this whole video anyway. But if you've made it this far, folks, I have introduced some channel membership levels. There's a Victa level and a Mercedes level. Tried to keep it really cheap, $1.49 for the Victa level. If you want to support the channel, consider joining, give you a couple extra features, use the DrewFixIt emojis, etc. Pre-release of videos. So nice level of features there for not much money, and just help us produce a few more videos like this. But also consider subscribing to the channel, folks, because on the channel you got all sorts of DIY maintenance, not only on lawnmowers but around the home and on vehicles. We've got the Mercedes, the Audi, the Mazda 3, the early Ford Falcon. So if you're interested in that content, do subscribe to the channel, folks. Until next time, have a good evening.